So in this video, we're going to try and program this piecewise function that we're given as a MATLAB function. And we want it to take an input x and output y based on our piecewise function. So what we can see is that as the value of x changes, we have different equations for calculating what the y value actually is. So what that's going to mean is we require an if function to try and figure out kind of which zone that we're in and then apply the correct equation. So I'm going to jump over to MATLAB now, and I'm going to open a new file, and we're making a function file here. So we want to tell MATLAB that it's a function, and remember the syntax is that we want square brackets for the output, and then equals the name of our function. So let's make this if practice or something like that, and then rounded brackets with the inputs. So it told us that our input was going to be a value x, and our output was going to be a value y. Alright, so down here now we're going to need to program in those statements. So it's an if statement that we're going to require because the outcome is going to change based on the x value. So if, and we need to give it a logic statement. So we can see that this first one here, we may as well start with the first one. So if the x value is less than 3, then we want to output the number 3. So we need to write this as a logic statement, which is just x is less than 3. We want to output our y value to be 3. And I'm going to put a little semicolon on the end so it doesn't spit that out for us down in the command window. And at the end of our if command, we need to have an end. Okay, so what we should find, I'll run this. Remember to save with the same file name as what you have for your function name here, so it works. And I'm going to copy this down to test it. So we need to give it an x value. So let's say I give it a value of 1. All right, that's x is less than 3, so it should give us a y value of 3. And we can see that's happening. If we test it with something else, let's say 0, again that's less than 3, so it should give us an output of 3, which we can see it's doing. Now if we pick one that's bigger, let's say we pick 7, this one is going to be a little bit unhappy. Okay, that's because we didn't meet this requirement. So x was greater than 3, and we didn't tell it what to do in that instance. All right, so that's why it's saying, I don't know what to do. You haven't assigned me a y value. Okay, so we can go back in and fix that now. So let's jump back to our next thing here. So we can either program this next one, which is if x is between 3 and 5, then we apply this equation. Or we can see this last one. This one's probably easier to program because it's if x is greater than 5, we just have to square it. Okay, so I'm going to go with this one next, and then we can work on the last one. So I'm going to type in the command else if. So we've got a second if function. So it's going to try and do this one first, and if it doesn't, if it's not true, it's going to move on to the next one. So this one is if x is greater than 5, we had our y value being equal to x squared. So we can type that in. And again, I'm going to give it the little semicolon on the end to suppress it. Alright, so we'll save it. And then down here, let's try it now where we have a 7. So that is bigger than 3. Bigger than 5. Alright, and we can see what's happened is we've got 49 as our output. So that means it tried x is less than 3, but it wasn't true. So it moved on to the next one. X is greater than 5. This is true. So it applied this equation. So 7 squared is equal to 49. If we try it with a different value, let's say we try 6, what we should expect is 36 to come out. All right, and that is indeed what we get. All right, so we have this little piece in the middle that we haven't quite defined yet. So what we would expect is, say we pick the number 4, it's not defined anywhere in this function at the moment. So again, it throws us this error, which is what we expected. So what we need to do is define what's happening in that middle region. So if we jump back over here, what we can see is that basically for everything else, it's going to have to be between 3 and 5. And we want to apply the equation x plus 1. So one way that we can do that is to use else as a third thing within our if statement. All right, so if x is not less than 3 and not greater than 5, it's going to fit into this category, which in our case is between 3 and 5. So then all we need to do is program in the equation. So that would be, what did we say? Y equals x plus 1. All right, so if I save it and I'm going to run it, right, x was equal to 4 in our case, and we can see that it skipped these 2 steps and gone into the else section here, and applied y equals, it's going to be 4 plus 1, which is equal to 5. So that's one way of programming in that piecewise statement. Of course, there's always other ways. For example, you could have used an AND statement. If I jump back to our page, we could have said if x is less than 3, sorry, x is greater than 3, that says, and x is less than 5, then do this. All right, so there's always more than one way in order to program these things. So that's pretty much all there is for this video, and I'll see you in another one.